So we're here at GameX today, and people are getting their hands on with the Crysis 3 multiplayer. What exactly is it that they're playing here behind us? Can you tell us that?
So at Gamescom earlier this year, we released our multiplayer segment, which included one map called Museum, set in the swamp segment of the Seven Wonders, and also 2 game modes, one of which is brand new, called the Hunter mode.
So that's what they're playing behind us, Hunter, here?
I think right now they're actually playing Crash Site, which is the other mode that we're even
that they're perhaps more familiar with.
Exactly. Yeah, Crash Site is a mode we've had in the Crysis series previously. It's basically like a dynamic capture point map.
So you've revealed some of the game modes that you're going to have in the game. What's the last one that you got to talk about? Was it Hunter, or have you revealed anything beyond that?
Yeah, so Hunter is really the one that we're focusing on right now. You're going to find when we release, there's going to be 8 different game modes in there. Of course, Deathmatch and Team Deathmatch will be standards in there as well, and then the 2 we're talking about right now, which is Hunter and Crash Site.
So I think multiplayer scene is a little bit hard to navigate these days because there are such giants out there. Sort of, how do you position Crysis? You have a sort of a position of your own, but how do you want to position Crysis 3 in this competitive market in terms of multiplayer?
So, I mean, coming into this, it's something that, you know, I don't think the Crysis series is very well known for at this point. Looking back at Crysis 1, you know, I think we had some great game modes in there with Power Struggle. Crysis 2, we switched that up quite a lot. With a much different, more enclosed kind of focus. And this time we've really found, and much to the same as our single player, as we're doing with our multiplayer, is finding that in between of how can we, you know, make the maps a little bit bigger, making the gameplay a little bit more friendly and different for people to get into as well. So I think we're positioning ourselves at about a halfway point. I mean, we're not going full out, you know, going, yeah, we're going to hit competitive side. If that grows organically, I think that's something that we'll get into. But, you know, it's really something that I think people are going to find different and they're going to enjoy. I think the things with the suit modes, and the various powers that you have alongside the suit definitely add quite a lot to the game.
So in the background, you got all those things. If people want to pick it up and play competitively, then it's already there, sort of, for people to do that? I
think there's some stuff in there that people are able to do. You know, you're seeing some games come out these days, especially with multiplayer segments, that are focusing specifically on that, on the esports market, and I think that's fantastic. And with the growth of Twitch and Owned and having those streaming abilities, just to even get out there at this point, I think is fantastic. I don't think we have all of the tools to achieve that, but, you know, like I said, if something grows organically out of there, you know, it's something we could go back and really look at putting some support into. So I hope that the community kind of jumps on that and you know, looks at how we can possibly work that into the system.
You talked a little bit, I don't know if I misinterpreted you, but it seems like the vision has been a little bit to sort of have the same kind of experience in multiplayer and single player, not sort of separate them. Is that correct?
There are major differences in it. I mean, you know, there's no story in single player really. I mean, you have different views of the nano suit. The suits operate in a much different way. You know, we came in and realized that, you know, a single player side and a multiplayer side, much different things, and we need to treat them as sort of independents. In terms of the art style and, you know, having those suit modes and the way that Crysis plays in general, I think that's the main familiarity piece. But I think people they're gonna have a much different experience from single player to multiplayer and the way that they play through it.
So, in terms of the single player, I think that's what most Crysis fans are looking forward to seeing, and sort of the sort of evolution from 1 to 2 and then to 3, which sort of comes across as something that takes a little bit from 1, a little bit from 2, and sort of mixes it up.
That's exactly right. So we went back at the beginning of Crysis 1 or the beginning of Crysis 3, and we really wanted to look at what were the greatest things about Crysis 1, what were the greatest things about Crysis 2, and how can we finish off this segment of the Crysis series with a bang in taking the best of both of those and really combining them into one. So the first would be the environments, and as you've seen with the environments, we are back in New York City again. It's broken down, there's dome built over top of it, there's jungle building up through it, and a lot of people that have sat down and played these single player aspects come out of it, and I've talked to them after, and they're like, wow, you guys really did hit the middle ground with that, and it's really it's really exciting when you hear that from people, because that's what you were always aiming to do, and that's where we ended up with. And so I think that, and then looking back on the gameplay itself, and not going, hey, let's rewrite the whole nanosuit again and, you know, do all sorts of crazy and wacky stuff. I mean, it is complicated as it is. I mean, the general FPS gamer that jumps into it that's never played Crysis before, you know, it's a bit of a change from what they're used to of, you know, here's my gun, I'm going to jump down, I'm going to shoot all these guys. But there's really like this planning phase in Crysis where it's like you overlook, and, you know, you've got guys that are, in multiplayer, for instance, you got guys that are cloaked, you got these armor modes, you got perks. And then for the single player side, I mean, you know, you got to really look at, and we've done a lot of changes to the AI systems as well, is really looking, what's the AI doing, tagging them, jumping down, and figuring out how you're going to attack them. So the whole assess, adapt, and attack thing that's been prevalent throughout the Crysis series will be very prevalent here, and probably more so than previously in the series.
You used a word there that is sort of, is a bit almost a trend word in gaming. That's trilogy. You know, everything is building to a trilogy. Was that ever the plan from the beginning, or is that just something that has come about?
No, it was definitely planned from the beginning, and if anybody wants to go back and reference it, type in Crysis 3 Trilogy, and you'll find our CEO back in 2007 saying when the first game came out that we had always intended Crysis to be a trilogy. But I think where we extend past that, a lot of the questions I've been getting is, well, does it end here? Is this the end of the series? Is this where it is? That may have been the case back in 2007, and I think only Shavat could actually answer that. But I think what we've done with the IP over the past 5 years since the original release of Crysis 1 in 2007 has been really we grew the IP out. We have such a rich backstory. We have such an iconic, I don't want to say character, but we have an iconic piece with the nanosuit that I think that going past Crysis 3 or going after Crysis 3, I think that we have a lot of juice left in the IP to do some cool stuff and take it further.
All right, and then the final question, of course, is when do we get to play Crysis 3?
So we're currently slotted. We don't have an official date yet, but we're currently slotted for February of 2013 on Xbox, PS3, and of course PC as well.
Thank you very much.